Part 31. The vicious female supporting character's character collapsed after her voice was eavesdropped. Author, R.O. Wich John Word. Chapter 301. Chapter 301 Stealing Food. Sunian and Sun Ying saw that it was getting late, so they ended their get-together, but they still agreed to go beauty shopping together in a few days. As soon as he came out, he saw Josu with a smile on his face. "Madam, I'm sorry, Mr. Lee originally planned to pick you up, but he has a very important meeting at the last minute, so he can't pick you up." Sunian stretched out and said, it's okay. I'm not a big shot. Just come and pick me up." After getting into the car, Sunian thought of something. So she coughed a few times. When Josu heard Sunian's cough, he immediately understood that he had something to tell him, and immediately said, "Madam, if you have anything to tell me, then just tell me directly." This is what Sunian wanted, but she still cleared her throat and said, "Josu, what's your expression like this? You look like this, as if I want to embarrass you." But the more Sunian said this, the more Josu felt a chill on his back. Facts have proved that Josu's hunch was right. Just listen to Sunian say, "I want to eat ice cream." "Madam, you are still taking Chinese medicine to regulate your body. The old Chinese medicine doctor has repeatedly said that you must avoid food during this period, otherwise, your medicine will be in vain." Josu immediately put on a serious expression. Sunian now feels a little numb when he hears the word Chinese medicine. Sunian even feels that Chinese medicine is in his blood now. "Josu, Baikan letting you stay with me means that he trusts you, but it doesn't mean that I trust you at this point." Sunian paused. "I can't guarantee whether I can blow the pillow. Bien Feng or something." "Josu, madam, can you touch Mr. Lee's pillow now?" "Sunian. Whoever she looks down on, she will show it to him tonight." Josu looked embarrassed. "Madam, I have an 80-year-old mother and a 3-year-old child. Please don't embarrass me. If you really want to eat, then you can tell Mr. Lee that if Mr. Lee agree, then maybe all the ice cream in the world will appear in front of you." Sunian said with a cold face, "Haha, Josu, you actually lied to me. What an 80-year-old mother. Your mother is probably less than 60 this year. A 3-year-old child, you are a single mother and a single dog. I'll make a kid." As for Josu's situation, she has a clear background. "Josu. It was a dark night and Sunian looked at Josu quietly, just watching this guy make up things. In the end, under Sunian's power, Josu could only buy her a small crispy tube worth 1 yuan. Although it is small, Sunian still feels happy. However, after returning to Li Baikan's office, Sunian still felt a little guilty. Like a child who steals snacks and is afraid of being caught in the bag. But when she thought about Josu's behavior, she felt that even if she gave Josu 10 courages, Josu would not dare to complain. Not to mention Li Baikan's attitude, even the old man's attitude towards her, Josu did not have the courage. But little did he know that Li Baikan knew about her eating ice cream from the moment she entered the door. Because Li Baikan heard Sunian's inner voice. "I deliberately wandered outside for half an hour and ran around the company several times. Not to mention my mouth, there was no place on my body that felt cold. He, as long as Josu doesn't lie, then Li Baikan will definitely not know that I secretly eat ice cream." End of this chapter. The vicious female supporting character's character collapsed after her voice was eavesdropped. Author, R.O. Wich John Word. Chapter 302. Chapter 302, Connected with Each Other. Li Baikan has a headache now. Why didn't Sunian put her body first? Has she really forgotten how difficult it was to give birth in her previous life? He put down the document in his hand and looked at Sunian. Sunian felt a little frightened when she was looked at like this. However, she still put on a smile, walked up to Li Baikan, and said very attentively, "Baikan, You were sitting here when I left. You are still sitting here now. Are you tired? If you are, you still have to take a rest. After all, your body is your last asset. What should you do if something goes wrong with your body? But as he spoke, Sunian looked at Lee Baiken's face and became more and more irritated. Sunian, Lee Baiken held the person in his arms. Now I feel that the two of us are becoming more and more suitable. These inexplicable words made Sunian's body tense up inexplicably. Then, she heard the man say, because now we have an understanding, I can know what you are thinking. Sunian. Haha, it's strange that this guy knows what I'm thinking. How can he still know that I complain about his shortness every day? Licking a dog. If you don't breathe heavily when you speak, will you die if you do this? It was really scary. Lee Baiken's eyes were filled with a smile, and then he whispered into Sunian's ear, for example, now I know what you are thinking. Sunian really used her best self-control to resist rolling her eyes on the spot. This guy's love words are really retarded. Just such love words, even a 6th grade primary school student would not say such words when talking about love, so this guy is really not an ordinary perfunctory person. But the next moment, Sunian was no longer calm. Because Lee Baiken said, for example, I know that you should have eaten something that you shouldn't have eaten today. Sunian. Holy shit, this Josu really knows how to file a complaint. Haha, I'll call the old man later and deduct this guy's salary. However, Sunian had the advantage of being a tough talker, and immediately struggled out of Lee Baiken's arms. Baiken, what do you mean by this? What did I eat secretly? You said this as if I was a child. No. No, Sunian said firmly. Lee Baiken kissed her face, but your heart says you ate it, so tell me whether it is your heart or your mouth that deceives others. Sunian really felt like a flock of crows were flying above his head. It's so scary, this guy actually defrauded me, it's really abominable. MD, we can't let this hateful guy succeed, otherwise, this guy won't know what he thinks of me in his heart. Then you also know how I feel about you. Do you know that I love you madly? Although Lee Baiken knew the woman in front of him very clearly, she was clearly acting. But he was still attracted by the starlight in her eyes. No. When Sunian heard this, he immediately continued to prepare nonsense. But I couldn't say it. I love you too, so much that I love you so much. Sunian wanted to find out where Lee Baiken lied, but couldn't find it. Lee Baiken told her that he loved her, and said that he loved her to the point of being crazy. It was clear that these words should make her laugh, but she didn't know why, but she couldn't laugh. Then she was hugged by Lee Baiken. That's why I knew you were eating ice cream behind my back. Sunian. End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The vicious female supporting character's character collapsed after her voice was eavesdropped. Author, R.O. Wich Jong Word. Chapter 303. Chapter 303 I don't like rainy days. During this time, Lee Baiken has begun to look forward to dreaming. Because he really wants to know what happened in his previous life. I want to know how much hardship Sunian suffered in his previous life. But this is not something he can just dream about. Finally, that night, he dreamed again. At this moment, Sunian was sitting in the company with a big belly, dealing with various things. He stood beside her, and just by standing there, he could feel the difficulty of every move she made. Then various personnel from the company came in and pointed fingers at Sunian. I plan to take advantage of her knowing nothing and make various tricks. When I finally finished working for a while, Sunian took a sip of water and simply lay down on the table to rest. Looking at Sunian like this, he felt anxious. After all, with her current body, it would really be a big deal if she got sick. But seeing her tired brows, he felt sorry that she was too tired. He has been in charge of the Lee family for so many years, but he knows very well how many things this company needs to deal with. Sometimes he feels a little overwhelmed, not to mention that Sunian is still twins now. Mr. Su, look at this document. At this moment, the door was suddenly pushed open. The loud noise caused the woman who was taking a rest to wake up immediately and forget the teacup she had placed next to her before taking a nap. When Lee Baiken saw the teacup fall to the ground, he subconsciously reached out to catch it. I caught the cup before dropping it to the ground, and I couldn't help but breathe a sigh of relief. But soon, he realized something was wrong. He can actually catch things. This is a dream. How could he receive something? For a moment, Lee Baiken didn't know how to describe his mood. Lee Baiken gently placed the cup on the ground. He looked at the woman who was discussing official business with someone, and he suddenly wanted to reach out and touch her. After all, if you can touch the cup, you should be able to touch. As his hand came closer little by little. Just when he was about to touch her. The next moment, Lee Baiken woke up from his dream. After waking up with a start, the lights were dim, the room was empty, and the only sound was his breathing. Make the whole room appear deeper. Lee Baiken looked down at his hands. This time I was actually able to touch her. This time the dream was really real. Very true. It's another rainy day. Sunian sat on the sofa and stared blankly at the rain outside the window. Lee Baiken, who returned to the office after handling the matter, couldn't help but walked over when he saw her like this. But he stopped before he had taken a few steps. Because he saw a trace of sadness in Sunian's eyes. She like this overlaps with her in the dream. Lee Baiken doesn't like Sunian now. He likes Sunian who thinks about messy things. Because such thoughts are like losing one's soul. Lee Baiken wanted to say something to break this scene. But before Lee Baiken said anything, Sunian's voice rang in his mind. Hey, what I hate most is rainy days. In my last life, when I first took over Lee Baiken's position, it would rain all the time. The sound of rain was really annoying and affected my wise decision-making. But with experience in this life, after Lee Baiken's accident, he shouldn't be so constrained anymore. At that time, I will kill people and turn this life into a happy novel. In this way, my mo about childhood should be happier. End of this chapter. The vicious female supporting character's character collapsed after her voice was eavesdropped. Author, R.O. Wich Jong Word. Chapter 304. Chapter 304 Don't move. If you move again, it will catch fire. Lee Baiken looked at the woman a few steps away from him. He walked slowly behind her. Sunian turned around and saw him, a smile appeared on his face. Are you back from the meeting? He stretched out his hand and touched her face gently. Feel her body temperature. Sunian had doubts in his eyes. What's wrong with this guy? Why is he touching my face like a dog? These words directly dispelled the emotions in Lee Baiken's heart. Looking at Sunian in front of him, he gradually came to life. He bent down and picked the person up. It's cold today, so don't sit here. I'll take you back to the lounge. Sunian in turn hugged his neck. Today's weather is indeed a bit cold, but I don't think there is any place warmer than your arms in Baiken. The people who were walking towards the lounge immediately changed their route after hearing this. Hold her to the office chair. Baiken, I will accompany you to read the documents. Your speed in processing documents should be faster. What's so good about the lounge? If I stay with Lee Baiken like this, I can take advantage of him when he's not paying attention. Now I understand more and more, what is the temptation of wearing a suit, a tight body wrapped in a shirt, this charm. I have wanted to touch it for a long time, and now this man who does not love himself has actually given me this opportunity, so why should I be so polite? You're totally welcome. Lee Baiken. At this moment, Li Baikan could clearly feel the woman's weak, boneless hands, secretly testing his body. Don't move. If you move again, it will start a fire. Li Baikan's voice was filled with helplessness. These words made Sunian even more uneasy. Fire? Can it still catch fire? So what are you waiting for? A single spark can start a prairie fire. Office, hee, although it's a bit shameful, I really don't mind. However, Sunian has not forgotten to pretend to be innocent. What's on fire, Baikan? There's a fire over there. Baikan, you heard it wrong. Li Baikan knew that Sunian would pretend to be innocent, so he pointed it out. Now he followed her words, you heard me right, it is indeed on fire, the fire on my body. Hands up, I can put out the fire, hurry up, hurry up. Then Li Baikan sighed under Sunian's eyes, and then said, but Sunian, forget it if you don't understand. Just think that I heard wrong. Sunian. What do you mean I heard it wrong? I heard it right. Now Sunian really wanted to grab Li Baikan's tie and say, since there is a fire, then put out the fire. Sunian still said a little unwillingly, Baikan. And Li Baikan held her hand, I'm sorry, it was my fault. I accidentally didn't restrain myself and said something I shouldn't have said, which tainted your ears. I won't say these things next time. When he got here, he paused, don't ask, you don't need to understand those bad things. Why is it like this again? I always take off my pants, give me this. Why did I pretend not to understand just now? Why don't I just say that I can help him put out the fire? Why are you pretending to be shy? You are so shy at this time. I should just pounce on him. Sunian had no intention of taking advantage after all this trouble. After all, whoever encounters a big piece of meat flying away in front of him is not in the mood to eat small meat. Just like that, she sat obediently in Li Baikan's arms and read the documents. But she was unhappy, very unhappy. Guess why I updated it in the middle of the night today, because the editor is sleeping now, and I thought, can I get through it if I try to update it to 6000? Hey. End of this chapter. The vicious female supporting character's character collapsed after her voice was eavesdropped. Author, R.O. Wich Jong Word. Chapter 305. Chapter 305. Baikan, you're here for me. How could Sunian be in a better mood if she hadn't taken advantage of him? Haha, I just don't understand. This guy is doing it on purpose, deliberately not letting me take advantage of him. It's hard to get me, you know, I'm just an old dirty turtle. Sunian immediately cleared his throat and said, Baikan, can you take the things out of your pocket? You hit me. No, I didn't put anything in my pocket. Li Baikan, who had just picked up the document, asked casually. No? Then why do I feel so panicked? It's very uncomfortable for me to sit in your arms. After Li Baikan realized what he meant. And this Sunian continued to twist. You must know that Li Baikan was just joking just now, but if he continues like this, he may really get angry. Then Li Baikan tightened his grip on Sunian. Sunian knew that her plan had succeeded as soon as she felt Li Baikan's movements. Hey, isn't it because of my personality that I can't take advantage? You must know that there is no advantage in this world that I cannot take advantage of. It's just something I don't want to take advantage of. Baikan, if you don't want me to accompany you, just say it directly. You don't have to slap me like this. I have been with you for so many years and have received so many cold looks from you. I have long been used to it. Sunian said this. But her little movements did not stop at all. This is really unbearable for Li Baikan. But I have said something similar just now. If you use that trick, you may really be eaten up. Just when Li Baikan was thinking about what excuse he should find to get over this incident, Sunian was attracted by the documents on the table. Chenggang Building Materials, oops, Why did I forget this matter? This Changgang Building Materials Company had quality problems in the previous life. Yes, it was Director Zhang who colluded, which caused the building to become an unfinished building 2 years later. According to time, it is indeed time to cooperate with Li at this time. When Li Baikan heard this, he sat up straight. This Changgang Building Materials was recommended by the old man. It was indeed recommended by the so-called Director Zhang. What the old man meant was that after all, Director Zhang was an old friend who had been with him for many years, and the people he recommended must be pretentious. So this building materials company was included in the company's examination list. But Li Baikan knew very well that for a real estate company, letting shareholders participate in building materials would definitely cause trouble, so for him, he planned to go through the motions from the beginning. According to what Sunian said in his previous life, if something happens to him, even if the old man is in charge of the company, Director Zhang, a veteran of decades, can still use his tactics very easily. When he thought of this, Li Baikan's eyes showed a hint of sternness. He felt that his attack on Director Zhang was a bit too gentle. Li Baikan was not a fool. Of course he knew what kind of embarrassment Sunian would be in if he really faced that situation. When he thought of this, his heart began to hurt. Especially now when I hear Sunian say in his heart, there is a way. As far as Li Baikan is skeptical about me now, as long as I show that I am very interested in this company, he will definitely check it out. Although this guy Li Baikan is a bit confused about emotional issues, but there is nothing confusing about this issue. End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The vicious female supporting character's character collapsed after her voice was eavesdropped. Author, R.O. Which Zhang Word. Chapter 306. Chapter 306. Isn't it a bit too casual? As long as I can let Li Baikan handle this matter at this time, then there will be one less big trouble in the future, and I will be a lot more relaxed. Hi hey, I am really a little genius. Deciding what to do, Sunian reached out and picked up the document, Changgang Building Materials. This company. This is the building materials supplier selected below. What's wrong? Li Baikan followed Sunian's words. Sunian watched it for about 3 minutes. The reason why it took 3 minutes was that she had been staring at the document for a long time and her eyes were a little dry. This could be said to be her limit. What's wrong? It's nothing, I just think the name is a bit bad. Ha ha ha, this excuse, when I hear this excuse, I will doubt it. Considering Li Baikan's suspicious temperament, he doesn't doubt it? He, it seems that Li Baikan's role in this life is not only to provide me with seeds, but also to clear obstacles. Just when Sunian was feeling proud, Li Baikan's voice sounded again, since you don't think it sounds good, then we won't cooperate with this company. Sunian's face suddenly stiffened. Then she watched Li Baikan tear the document into pieces. That's right, tear it into pieces. Even Sunian couldn't help but say, Baikan, are you a little too casual? After all, cooperation is such a big thing, but it affects the company. Is this the nature of a domineering president? It's so casual. Why do I feel that my role as CEO in my previous life was really for nothing? I was timid and didn't look domineering at all. Cooperation depends on many aspects, and luck also has many aspects. When you first see the name of this company, you feel bad, so this company has bad luck. Since it is bad luck, it is indeed there is no need to cooperate with them. Sunian. This reminded Sunian of a story he had seen on the internet. During the interview, the examiner would randomly select some people and throw them into a shredded paper tube. Li Baikan is also plagiarizing this story. Although such behavior was indeed a bit stupid, Sunian couldn't help but sigh when he saw Li Baikan like this. Li Baikan, the domineering president, is not just ordinary, he is quite majestic. No, if I become a domineering president again in this life, I will also have such prestige. Baiken, what you said is so good. You are so outstanding. I can't even imagine that there is anything like this. Li Baiken was not happy at all when Sunian praised him so much. When Sunian has had enough fun, go back to the lounge. He immediately called Josu to check the company. I didn't know the result when I checked it, and I was shocked when I checked it. There is also Huo Linyuan's handwriting here. He looked at the documents in front of him and smiled. Josu, who was standing nearby, secretly glanced at Li Baiken, just looking at Li Baiken. He felt cold all over his body and quickly looked away. Josu, go and check whether these directors of our company are closely related to Huo Linyuan or Huo Linyuan's friends. Li Baiken directly put his hand heavily on the table. Although there is only one Mr. Zhang. But Li Baiken felt as if he had seen the situation Sunian faced in his previous life. Haha, it doesn't matter, he can slowly clean up those old men. In this case, even if something unexpected happens in his life, Sunian will not be bullied by these guys. End of this chapter. The vicious female supporting character's character collapsed after her voice was eavesdropped. Author, R.O. Which Zhang Word. Chapter 307. Chapter 307 Being Huo Linyuan's dog, will the end be so miserable? Early in the morning, everything is silent. In such a situation, it is most suitable for the most shady things. For example now. Li Baiken, wearing a white shirt, stood in the middle of an open space, looking like he was waiting for something. Soon a car came speeding from a distance. When the car stopped, Huo Linyuan got out of the car. Li Baiken, do you have anything to do with me? Li Baiken threw the cigarette case at Huo Linyuan casually. It's nothing, but the company is too busy today, so I wanted to ask Mr. Huo to come out to relax and relax. Huo Linyuan looked at Li Baiken. He knew very well that Li Baiken was not a leisurely man. Is it because he couldn't help it? Do you want to continue to interfere in Lanji's affairs? Although he was confused, Huo Linyuan also knew the principle of losing the battle before losing. Really? Then Mr. Li, tell me how to relax. You must know that I am also a bit busy at work these days. If Mr. Li, if you have a good idea, then tell me about it, so that I can relax a bit. As he said that, Huo Linyuan took out a cigarette from the cigarette case he caught and started smoking. Soon a car appeared again. And there was someone dragging behind the car. The vehicle stopped in front of Huo Linyuan. Mr. Huo, you must know your own dog, Li Baiken said with a half smile. Yes, this is the boss of the building materials company. Although he didn't know what happened to Sunian in his previous life, Huo Linyuan's dog must pay the price. Of course, whose dog it was, it must be thrown back to its owner. After Li Baiken finished speaking, the car started again. Following this was the sound of screams. Huo Linyuan also laughed. It's just a puppy. Li Baiken, you are so angry like this. You are a bit too angry. I just want to know whether you, Huo Linyuan, can keep your own dog. And the man began to beg for mercy. Mr. Huo, save me, save me. This is what you, Huo Linyuan, are capable of. You can't even save your own dog. If this matter spreads, what will happen to your reputation, Mr. Huo? Li Baiken roared with all his strength. Li Baiken knew that his goal had been achieved when he saw the smile on Huo Linyuan's lips. If Li Baiken guessed correctly, then Huo Linyuan would definitely feel that he was irritating him, and maybe he would laugh at him in his heart about how restless Li Baiken was. It's a pity that he did it on purpose. Since he has chosen to be my dog, he should know what will happen if he becomes my dog. All this is the price he pays for being my dog. Mr. Li, if you are so impatient, then your future you will definitely suffer a loss, Huo Linyuan said casually. Li Baiken, is it so miserable to be your Huo Linyuan's dog? Then I won't be polite. After all, your dog really bit me. Huo Linyuan never thought about how important the construction company's chess move would be from the beginning. He just put it there casually. After all, the chess pieces on the chessboard were all about layout. Some chess pieces seemed useless, but when placed there, it might come into play at a critical moment. Just like this move made by the construction company, Huo Linyuan really felt that this move played a big role. Let him see Li Baikan's jumping step. End of this chapter. The vicious female supporting character's character collapsed after her voice was eavesdropped. Author, R.O. Wich John Word. Chapter 308. Chapter 308, Pull out the nails planted by Huo Linyuan. But Huo Linyuan's happiness did not last long. He received the news when he returned to Huo's house. Li Baikan sent the conversation between the two of them to all the powerful families in the city. And the title is The Fate of Being Treated Like a Dog to Huo Linyuan. At this time, Huo Linyuan realized that Li Baikan wanted everyone to know the consequences of cooperating with him. Want him to fight alone. But Huo Linyuan didn't think it was anything. After all, he knew that a truly strong person would not care about this. Huo Linyuan, you really don't have ordinary morals. People work hard to do what you want, but you are so heartless. Who else is willing to do things for you like this? Lu Jing said with a face filled with gloating. Huo Linyuan didn't even glance at him. I'm talking to you. Now everyone knows that there will be no good consequences for cooperating with you. As the saying goes, there will be too much help in the right way and few in the wrong way. Aren't you afraid that you will be finished by then? This is something you should worry about, not me. I don't know why, Lu Jing felt something was wrong when he heard this, why he felt like he was stupid. This made Lu Jing feel uncomfortable. I came to care about you out of kindness, but I didn't expect you to say that. Huo Linyuan sneered, you care about me, why do you come here? Do you think I don't know? If you want to watch a show, just watch the show quietly and shut your mouth. If you can't take care of yourself, if you say anything, you will be responsible for the consequences. Things were obviously not as simple as Huo Linyuan thought. The nails he planted in the Li family were pulled out one by one. Director Li, who had dealings with him, was gradually promoted to the board of directors and the company by Li Baikan. The means are cruel and fast, leaving no one in time to react. Li's board of directors room. All directors are now at risk. They knew that Li Baikan's methods were ruthless and his heart was ruthless, but they didn't expect that he would do it so quickly and without giving them any reaction at all. Now they are sitting here and everyone is in danger. They were talking to each other, and everyone was pale-faced. Yes, they planned to unite and let Li Baikan know the price. Otherwise, I don't know how Li Baikan would deal with old guys like them. What are you discussing? Li Baikan's abrupt voice sounded. The expressions of the directors present changed. Although what he said was good just now, he was silent at the moment. Li Baikan walked to his seat under the eyes of everyone, and tapped the table with his finger bones casually. Everyone was talking so enthusiastically just now, why are you so quiet? Say, you are all mine. Elders, as juniors, you should listen. Li Baikan's tone didn't have many ups and downs, but every word had the meaning of knocking. At this time, a slightly older director spoke up, Baikan, you also said that we are your elders, but you have not taken us elders to heart at all recently. Yes, we know it very well. I know your abilities, but even if you are powerful, you will lose people's hearts if you do this. Once you get started with the first one, it will be easier to talk next. 1 and 2 began to accuse one after another. Li Baikan, on the other hand, sat down on the chair very calmly, with a very serious expression, and he really seemed to respect his elders. Hey, I was walking my dog yesterday. My corgi jumped into a ditch and fell straight down. I wanted to humiliate it, so I jumped too, but my foot was dislocated. End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The vicious female supporting character's character collapsed after her voice was eavesdropped. Author, R.O. Wich Jong Word. Chapter 309. Chapter 309, Because I wanted to do it, I did it. Let's talk about Director Jong. How much Director Jong has worried about the company, and Director Jong has not done anything excessive. Why are you doing this to Director Jong? Baiken, what on earth are you doing? Are you trying to make us all? Are you chilling? Everyone around him echoed. Lee Baiken looked calm on the surface. But no one knew that he really wanted to deal with these people directly. These are the moths who made things difficult for Sunian in his previous life. Finally, Lee Baiken felt that time was almost up, so he finally said, Director Jong, haha, his own son is not his biological son and caused a stroke. This is all my fault, and several other directors, they colluded with outsiders and wanted to. Why can't I do something to harm the company's interests? Even so, why are you so ruthless? He did something wrong, but he did a lot for the company back then. Should he be killed now if he makes a small mistake? The director who spoke this time. I was really a little too excited, and even at the end of the sentence, I started slamming the table. Didn't the company pay him wages for so many years? Didn't they get what they deserved over the years? Lee Baiken yelled back directly, you have to pay the price for cheating. Don't talk about so-called feelings. If you want, do you think the company can't give you what you want? Then you can go to Huo's or other places to get what you want. Otherwise, there will only be one end, and that is ruin. These words directly address the people present. I still say the same thing. If you don't do anything bad, don't be afraid of ghosts knocking on your door. If you really do something bad, then don't blame ghosts for knocking on your door. For a time, everyone on the board of directors was in danger. They went to find the old man again. But the old man still didn't care. At the same time, Sunian was also worried. Sunian knew very well that nothing happened to these people at this time. It took her a long time in her previous life to defeat them one by one and completely control the entire Lee family in her own hands. But now these people are taken care of by Lee Baiken. Sunian thought to herself that if these directors were dealt with in this life, her future would be easier. But the uneasiness in her heart was getting bigger and bigger. The butterfly effect. She doesn't know whether the result is good or bad. Just when she was struggling, Lee Baiken appeared in front of her. Lee Baiken held her in his arms. I've been busy these past few days and I've neglected you. I'm sorry. Sunian's body suddenly stiffened. Although I don't want to admit it, Lee Baiken's methods are really good. He directly dealt with all the directors, which is better than me. Although dealing with those old men is not difficult. But Lee Baiken was still a little tired. But after hearing Sunian's words, he didn't feel tired at all. Baiken, why did you suddenly attack them? After all, these people are also our elders. If you attack rashly, you will be in trouble. Sunian couldn't help but ask. However, it is normal for a vicious female supporting character like her to do something that arouses suspicion, and it is in line with her character. After Sunian finished speaking, she felt the man put his lips on her earlobe. Because I wanted to do it, I did it. Sunian. It's that simple. End of this chapter. The vicious female supporting character's character collapsed after her voice was eavesdropped. Author, R.O. Wich Jong Word. Chapter 310. Chapter 310. Is there any talent for being a domineering president? Sunian also knew that Lee Baiken could not tell the truth to him. But this response is too perfunctory. I suspect that in this guy's eyes, I am just a fool. Although I don't expect this guy to tell me the truth directly, I can't be so casual. I need to be more careful. Sunian, who was now being held by Li Baikan, couldn't help but roll his eyes. Li Baikan smiled when he heard Sunian's words, and then started to talk about the reasons he had prepared, because I have decided to live a good life with you. You seem to have talked about having children before, so I just thought about it. Guy cleaned up. In this way, although we don't know how soon our child will be born, we can give him a perfect environment. Sunian. What does it mean to have a baby? Although we don't know how long it will take for our baby to be born, we can have it now, right away, or within minutes. Immediately, Sunian said seriously, Baikan, you have done a good job. The silverfish in these companies should be dealt with quickly to avoid causing huge losses to the company. And the actions were so thunderous that even I couldn't react. But when Sunian said this, an idea flashed across his face. You must know that Li Baikan is 100% a domineering president. You can see it from the things and methods he does at work. I might as well learn from this guy secretly while he is still alive. In this case, I will also be a domineering president in the future. If you can relax a little, you can have more time to save the innocent teenagers at the White Horse Club. Li Baikan. The first sentence is good, but what does the second half of the sentence mean? Baikan, can you tell me what you think about when you plan to deal with these things in the company? How do you think of those plans and what is the basis for them? Just like that, Li Baikan slowly spoke under Sunian's expectant eyes. You also said that you are a silverfish in the company. Do you still pay attention to methods when you crush the bugs? Baikan. Sunian spoke in a longer tone. After all, when using Duyan, Sunian not only likes to save the little brother, but also likes to save the little sister. I've heard too many young ladies act coquettishly, and she acts very greasy on purpose. Maybe it's just disgusting. As expected, Li Baikan frowned and held her in his arms. There is indeed no plan. You want me to tell you what it is? I really can't tell you anything. Maybe it's talent. Sunian's mouth twitched. What is talent? This guy is too perfunctory. Is there any way to talk about talent when you are a domineering president? Sunian, what do you mean by that look? Do you mean you don't believe it? Li Baikan spoke again when he heard Sunian's frantic voice, with a bit of smile in his eyes. What else could Sunian do, but he could only boast against his will. How could it be possible? How could I not believe it? I just didn't expect that. Baikan, you are so good and special. No wonder when I saw you, you were like I saw the light of the sun, so dazzling and dazzling. Not to mention a silverfish, with your talent, even this world is destined to surrender at your feet. What's the use of being so good? I'm going to die early, and the property is not mine. But I guess this guy must have felt uncomfortable after hearing my compliment. Just feel uncomfortable. Just to make this guy uncomfortable. In your heart, am I really that good? Sunian only looked at Li Baikan's face at this time. And the man's face was all smiles. Looking at this smile, Sunian nodded subconsciously. End of this chapter.